She is a cultural creator. She is a cultural curator, and she is Caribbean peoples. She is my friend from high school, Alysia Christiani. How you doing today?
I'm good. How are you, Rob? Thanks for having me.
It is a pleasure to see your face after all this time.
A million years have passed.
But here we are, and thank you for joining. We are Boss People. So, versus last weekend, Memorial Day edition, dance hall edition. Lots of people have recapped it, so I don't want to necessarily go into that. But your top three moments from versus dance hall edition, what were they?
Well, of course, the illustrious That Coffin song, the dub plate where he does, that came out of nowhere.
Right.
And the whole moment, the strut, the lyrics, that was the top moment for me there. Two, Beanie Man's belly. It it had its own hashtag. I loved it. It was like
there are Twitter accounts now with the handle Beanie Man's belly.
No, for real.
Yes, his belly's got its own social media account. Yes.
Dancehall dad bod. I'm not mad at it.
I'm mad at it.
We all grow up. That's what I saw in it. I was like, we all grow up and we all become adults, and here we are.
Yes.
King of the dance hall with his belly. And third, the girl who kept coming in and dancing.
Dancer.
I was like, you are the kid who keeps coming up into the party, and your mother's like, get in your bed. This big thing. And she won't go away. So she cracked me up. But the whole thing was amazing.
It was amazing. So wanted to get your opinion on the versus effect. So the versus effect before now has been talking about the impact that versus had on the music business. So I think after the Erica and Jill Scott one, they saw like a 300% increase in their streams on Pandora and Spotify. So the question is, will there be a versus effect as it relates to dancehall and Caribbean culture? Are we going to see, you think, more collaborations with pop artists and dancehall? Are we going to see, more dance come into the mainstream? Do you think there will be any kind of carryover versus effect after last weekend?
I think there will. Collaborations have been a staple in dancehall, so I don't know, that'll necessarily affect that. But I was really blown away by the love, and I really thought this was going to be like a family thing. You know what I mean? I thought this was going to be an intra-Caribbean celebration, and checking the feeds and Twitter, and like I was on all the platforms monitoring what everyone was saying, and it was so global. And Americans, everyone from the global South, white folks, everyone loved it. And what will happen is that there will be a resurgence. Dancehall has been here for a while and it's not going anywhere, but there'll be a resurgence as this battle has sparked people who perhaps before were like, a little bit more and didn't understand, didn't get the vibe. It really is going to spark a renewed interest.
So taking you back to the 90s, were you a dancehall fan?
I was. What's so funny though is that it took me a while to get there. My family's from Guyana, technically in South America, but we're part of the Caribbean. Don't start that. So I grew up in it, but I never thought about it. Right. So it wasn't until like high school. So I had, we went to high school together, but in school, my school life, I wasn't particularly Caribbean, but in my home life, I was. So a lot of the parties and things like that, I was all in it, learning all the dances, learning all the new steps and the songs and the artists. So definitely the 90s dancehall scene was my era, and I live for it.
And then are you introducing, or have you tried to introduce your kids into the classics?
Man, it's been so difficult, honestly. Like that's something I'm actually gonna I want to deep dive into, because I'm first generation. So I was born and raised in America. So my kids are second gen, and they are not embracing the culture it's a little, it took me a while to get there. So I'm trying to give them their space. My kids are 20 and 21 years old. They're not kids. So it took me maybe high school when I started embracing it. Maybe it'll take them longer, but they are very Americanized. They recognize and they appreciate, but they've said things, and their whole circle, I've sat with them, and because their whole circle is second generation Caribbean Americans, and they're all like, yeah, it's cool, but it's one kid told me, it's too sexual. I was like, what? He was like, all that grinding and whining. I was like, what? You, a young man who in your 20s, are telling me that.
Right. Well, you know, it's
So,
interesting. Like, so I'm not sure if this is the case with you, but my wife and I talked about. She's also Jamaican. Both her parents are Jamaican. We were just talking about. You know, I'm on my dad's side. He's Jamaican. I don't say I'm half Jamaican because there's no half of anything, right?
You're all in. You're all or nothing.
You're all in. But when maybe it was true when you were growing up, there were a lot more family parties, right? There were people who lived closer together. They were gathering. So, you know, we didn't have streaming platforms. We didn't have YouTube, but, you know, you were dragged to parties and you had no choice, right? You were there all night, so you picked it up. I think, right, my wife and I are saying, we don't go out nearly half as much as either our parents did. Like, how did they go out like that? Where did all these parties happen? No one has parties like that these days. You know, so
that's a good point. I never thought of it that way. Yeah, even if you didn't go in it, people were constantly. They had parties in the house, and the music was just always there. The culture was always there, and now they have an opportunity to sample so many other American culture so much more than we did. That makes sense. That's a good point. Yeah.
So your cultural heritage identity. So you have a platform of your own, Rewind and Come Again, and I know we were previously talking about how you've probably come to embrace your heritage more than you did when you were in high school. Talk about your journey a little bit, like, you know, how you kind of came in and out of identity. Obviously, it was a part of you in high school, but when did you come to embrace it more and feel the need to even write about it, to celebrate it, to, you know, start the platform that you did?
Yeah, well, in high school, like I said, we went to the same school, and during the day, during classes, I was just Alysia, you know, whatever. There were no cultural markers necessarily. When I came home, my family, my neighborhood was very Caribbean American. And in particular, we were very active in a church that was very Caribbean American. And my mother forced us to join the youth group. And this was we were all Caribbean American kids. And we put on talent shows and we did dances, and it was all surrounding Caribbean American culture. And through that experience and through my family, what I slowly began to realize is that there was this divide, I perceived as a divide between native-born Caribbean people and Caribbean Americans. And it was just always a feature in my life that, honestly, it pissed me off. You know, I was the Yankee in the family, or they would tell jokes and like, oh, you don't get it. You didn't grow there. You don't understand. Or you don't eat that. And like, it was a thing that, you know, that grew it, and I grew resentful of it. And I love to write. I always had journals, and blogging came along, and I was blogging for myself initially. And I was just like, I have these thoughts, I have these feelings, I want to share it. I have to get it out. And it all surrounded the intersection of Caribbean and American culture and life. And that's where Rewind and Come Again was born.
Love it. What to you think is the difference between how you experienced Caribbean identity as a first generation growing up in New York City versus, say, your parents and what they experienced when they came to the States?
The difference in our experience, I mean, theirs was typical immigrant experience, right? So I didn't have those struggles of, you know, my mom worked the United Nations for 30 years. So she was in a bit of an international space, but at the same time, she gave me lessons on how to speak. I distinctly remember that, you know, it's water, you know, and things like, you know, and when I would call her at work, she could never get rid of her accent completely, but it changed significantly when she was around her work friends versus when she came home. So their experience was very much assimilation, trying to fit in, trying to, you know, make the best of it, and giving us my brother and I, those values. We took that and our experience growing up in America, mashed them together and realized we don't have to assimilate. Because we are from here, and we can choose to be different and embrace parts of the culture, and not just embrace, but celebrate and show parts of the culture that you maybe didn't feel comfortable doing because you were trying to fit in.
Right. And then in your platform, are there certain types of stories that you're looking to tell, or what to you is really interesting now about that intersection of where you are in your identity and the stories that you like to hear about?
What I'm really interested in is other people's journey on that the same Caribbean American path, and how they've melded the worlds, maybe not, what drama, trauma, celebrations have come from that, just how the two intersect. I've met so many people, most of my friends are first generation, and we have similar stories, some not, but very similar stories in how we pick and choose and pull from each part of us. And depending on your context, when you go home, whichever island you're from, trying to, do I have to prove my Caribbeanness, my Jamaicanness, my Guyaneseness? Do I not? Do I make you accept me? You know, like just walking that line every day, subconsciously, consciously, it's a thing. So I'm always interested in exploring those stories.
Yeah, my reaction to all the, oh, you're born here, you don't do this, you don't know that, was, you chose to come here. You chose to come here. I didn't have a choice. Why is it on me?
Thank you.
Anyway,
but somehow it is.
So it still comes to us. Right. So I'm curious. So one of the things that I wonder if you've experienced, right? Recently, I was thinking about how Caribbean identity was passed on to me through my father. And you know, my father, I think, has this duality where, again, born in Jamaica, went through a certain type of education. Still, I think, you know, being born when his era, the British influence was still strong in schooling and education and expectations. But then you have the Saturday night version of my father with, you know, the parties and everything. And it was like, wait, which version of West Indies are we talking about? Like, you know, you must have your shirt ironed and have a certain appearance at gatherings, or you must, you know, it's like, come on, unbutton your shirt and you need to relax a little bit. It was, you know, so I get both of those from my father, this like very, you know, the propriety, and then also this kind of, you know, like kind of casualness that he just has a very.
That's the best part of Caribbean folks, I think, is that we're so, like, we don't make sense almost. You know, like there's this, you need to be better and upper and this and that, and then the other, you know, you're down and, you know, you're whining and you're grinding and you're down and dirty, you're playing mass, and somehow we make the two work.
Right. So you also work in the film space, is that correct?
Yes.
So can you describe what you do in the film space and your projects there?
Sure. I'm a member of a Caribbean American media collective called Third Horizon. It's about 10 members across New York and Miami, and we produce film festivals, actual films, and distribute and celebrate and support upcoming Caribbean filmmakers. So I myself am more of an operations person behind the scenes, the festival, helping to produce festivals. When we used to meet in person, screenings here in New York City with BAM, individual screenings, smaller, more intimate spaces where, you know, we'd have less people and we have more conversation around a theme every month, as well as larger festivals. Our flagship festival is the Third Horizon Film Festival, which held every February in Miami. Usually every May, we have one in Guyana called Timehri Film Festival. We're moving online this year because, you know, everything's on lockdown. But yeah, I came to this the same way I did embracing any part of my Caribbean culture. I just randomly saw an event on Facebook, screening of Caribbean films. I was like, oh, there are films in the Caribbean? I didn't even think of that.
Right,
besides
contemporary films, right? Who knew?
Yeah, dancehall queen, maybe, you know, rockers, whatever. But so I checked it out, and the woman who was setting it up we're now partners. Romola Lucas, who's a lawyer from Guyana who just loved film and wanted to see more of it, and started something called the Caribbean Film Academy, which merged with Third Horizon. And in the 5 years we've been in existence, we've done a lot, and I've learned a lot, and I've come to really embrace and love the Caribbean film space. I've learned how much we've been doing for quite some time, and the range of stories being told. It's amazing. The talent in the islands is incredible.
What are some of the different storytellers that you've seen, either producers or writers or directors, that you've been really vibing off of and think people should know about?
One of my favorite directors is a Trinidadian man named Damien Marcano. He started out in music videos for Sean Paul, lots of big names. Then he did a short called Little Boy and the Ball. And now he's done some features that you have to check him out. The colors, the stories are so strong, and the way he edits and cuts the film, I can't even describe them. So there's one online called Fire Queen, about a girl who, won't give it too much away, but has this power involving fire. He's done one called, Here They Are Monsters. I'll get the correct name, but it's all done in papiamento, filmed in Curacao, which is the language of Aruba, like Dutch and English, and all kinds of languages mixed together. And one of my favorites is God Loves the Fighter, a Trinidadian film that's just nitty gritty, and like he's amazing. Damien Marcano is someone you really should check out.
We'll definitely check him out. And then I saw from the list of films for the Guyanese festival that you mentioned, what was really interesting was that there were more stories by and about LGBTQIA creators. So is that like an emerging thing that's coming out of the Caribbean? Is that more recent, or has that been really going on for a while, but it's just not getting the recognition that it deserved previously?
It's fairly recent. The Caribbean has not been embracing of our LGBTQIA brothers and sisters, but in recent years, there's been a pride movement going on, and they have stories to tell, and they've been picking up the camera and making it happen. And I'm really moved by the work that's come out of there. There's a lot of it is, a little traumatic sometimes not, but yeah, there's been amazing work coming out of the Caribbean around that community, and it's fairly recent, but it's great.
And then what are some of the other themes that you really found interesting from the creators? I'm sure some of them dealing with contemporary stories, maybe some with historical. Is there anything like really risky or out there that you just blew you away in terms of storytelling these days?
There's a Guyanese filmmaker, Kojo Macpherson. He does a lot of shorts. He's working on a feature now that I really like because he's a little political. Politics in the Caribbean in general is, a thing. And in Guyana in particular, there's so many elements. There's a large racial component, the dynamics of power. And he tells these short stories that just like punch through and just make you sit up and like in 10, 15, 20 minutes, just like, oh, whoa, I didn't think of this in that way. And you get you to really see an issue. His more recent film explores the indigenous side of Guyana, which I find fascinating because, we know the Caribbean is made up of a bunch of different types of people, but I find that the indigenous population doesn't really get a lot of voice. So I'm really looking forward to his feature coming up about that.
Oh, is his feature coming up in the online?
It's still in production, so no. But there's a short version that is available online. Well, we have an online platform called StudioNancy.tv where you can view a range of films, children's films, animation, dramas, documentaries, etc. So. I'm
just curious, do you watch contemporary music videos, like the current dancehall videos? I currently don't really, I'm just, the latest I've gotten is Coffee on Spotify or Pandora. This is my playlist, but I'm just curious if the visual storytelling style has changed at all, or is it kind of any updated or different?
Dancehall, it's, you got the girls shaking their ass, and it's a music video. Most of them don't tell a story, and then that's fine. You don't have to. There's a place and a space for just having fun and entertainment. So not particularly.
Not particularly, got it. Now we were talking about pop culture and kind of representation in pop culture. You had a really, really great blog post about She's Gotta Have It and the different characters and diversity that Spike Lee had put out about, what's it called? The People's Republic of Brooklyn, which, is filled with the diversity of the diaspora. What do you think about the current state of representation in pop culture of Caribbean imagery? I mean, it's got a long way to go. What would you like to see more of?
I would like to just see more authenticity for some and diversity. I think people think because you include a Jamaican character, you're being diverse, right? I think there's just not a lot of information about the Caribbean beyond Black, Beach, Bob Marley. You know, the amount of the Indian, Chinese, Syrian, Amerindian, like people don't understand that we are a huge melting pot that you can choose from. So I'd love to see that more, and authentic, stories. Like I loved She's Gotta Have It, but there were things they could have tweaked. The accents were kind of terrible. It's not necessary, language coaches exist, Korean people exist. But there are also, I've noticed there are platforms coming up that supports Caribbean actors and Caribbean script makers and script writers and Caribbean casting here in the States that are up and coming, that are, I think will feature broadly in helping that issue.
Right. No, I saw, I'm not sure if you're a Netflix subscriber, but it seems like, South African films having a moment or production and, all about it. So it just made me hope to see that some of that opportunity and exposure was also extended to Caribbean creators to see a diversity of characters and storylines as well.
Yeah. I know recently Netflix aired See You Yesterday, which is like a Brooklyn sci-fi film that Spike Lee was like the mentor to the director. And the director is of Guyanese heritage, and in the film he includes Guyanese actors and has the flag, and it's not central to the story and doesn't need to be, but it's a nice background because it is in Brooklyn. Acknowledge us. So hopefully, let the South Africans shine for a minute, and then you can come on over to the Caribbean.
Love it. Where can people check out your film festival online?
Sure. So Timehri Film Festival is going to be held on June 4th through June 7th. You can check us on our Facebook page. So it's Timehri, Timehri Film Festival on Facebook, and also on our YouTube channel. On YouTube, we're Timehri, Timehriff. But if you search Timehri Film Festival, will come up. So we'll be streaming each film live, and then you'll be able to view it again later if you're not able to catch it in the moment for the duration of the festival. Perfect.
And last question about Guyanese food in Brooklyn. Where are the spots? Where you gotta go?
What? You right there, son. How you don't know?
I know the ones that I got to, but I don't know if those are these spots. Where would you go to if everything was opened up and you need a fix? Where are you going to get your fix from?
First, you got to go to P&S Bakery on Utica. That's where my mom goes. The line is out the door, but it's worth it. And it's not just a bakery. They got good food. Pam's, Sylvia. It's like so many. But those are my faves. Okay. P&S and Pam's.
Good to know. Well, thank you, Alysia, for your time and the conversation. And looking forward to checking out the festival online.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Rob. I really appreciate it. Let's not let another 20 years pass before.
No, was it 20? It was one year.
It was something.
Take care, Alysia.
Thank you.